Good evening, everybody who's joining us for this fantastic webinar, the Smartphone Free Childhood South Africa webinar tonight. We are just looking at everybody coming in from the waiting room, so we're just going to give everybody a chance just to come along in. We are also waiting for Hugo to be joining us. We, as all good things in life, curveball today, where Hugo has had an unexpected, very short notice flight that he's having to catch to London. So we are going to be hopefully having Hugo tap into us from OR Tambo. But let's just get everybody coming into the room. And what we'd love to do just to start off this evening is really to get an idea of how everybody is feeling about the subject of EdTech and the dilemma we are really all facing, because what we're finding as parents, as we are all coming together under this banner of smartphone free childhood and trying to delay smartphones and social media for our children, is that we come to this T-junction with the educators of our children, particularly in primary school, where EdTech is suddenly a requirement. We're going to do a little bit of a poll later about what age that is definitely happening. But many of us are faced with this requirement then to invest in tech, whether it's kept at school or whether it's coming home. But we are finding suddenly ourselves in the position of having to manage whether it's tablets, whether it's an iPad, whether it's perhaps a laptop. But this device is now potentially coming home for us to manage. And so this is the dilemma that we're going to be talking about tonight. If you could all please give us an idea about your feelings around EdTech. Are you excited about the use of technology in your child's school? Are you somewhat interested? Maybe you're not sure. Are you a bit hesitant, or are you quite concerned? And so thank you for getting all those inputs and the feedback coming in. And I'm going to end that poll now. And there's a few more coming in, right? Let's end the poll. And I'm going to share those results for all of us to see. So I think there's a lot of us parents that are interested in about how EdTech is being used, and obviously all the wonderful benefits, and some of those we're going to be chatting about tonight. But there's certainly many of us that are feeling quite hesitant and quite concerned about it. And that's part of what tonight's going to be. We're going to be on a bit of an exploratory journey and having a little bit of a discussion around this and coming out with some solutions and what we can do next about this topic. So I am joined tonight, hopefully going to be joined still by Hugo, because we'd love to hear a little bit of his story and why he is a big supporter of smartphone-free childhood as a dad himself. But tonight, your questions are shaping the discussion. We asked you to give us your questions when you're registered, and we've had a good look at those, and we are hoping to be answering as many of those as we can, with the emphasis on the fact that we are all learning as we go. Whether you're a parent on the webinar tonight or you are an educator, tonight is about finding ways that we can collaborate to make more mindful and intentional choices in the best interests of our children, because that's what really is the priority, and that is what needs to come first. So I'm Kate, and I'm a mum of teens myself. I'm going to tell a little bit of a story a bit later about my fairly solo journey in discussing EdTech matters with my daughter's school a few years ago. I've been working in an online safety roles for many years, and unpacking the challenges around EdTech, and particularly around iPads and laptops, which is what both my children have been exposed to in their schools, is close to my heart. And I know it's a very topical discussion, particularly for primary school parents who are online. So together with one of my partners at Smartphone Free Childhood, Bronwyn Desjardins, who is an EdTech expert herself and an educator, we're part of the Smartphone Free Childhood team. So Bron, over to you if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Kate. So like you, I'm a mum, but my two adult children grew up at the intersection of opportunity and dilemma created by digital technology. As an EdTech specialist with over 24 years in education, I've led iPad rollouts and seen firsthand how intentional technology use can benefit learning when it serves education, not the device. And my focus is helping families navigate complex choices by combining facts with a deep emotional understanding so that I can enable them to find realistic, workable solutions that respect their values and their circumstances. And I'm delighted that we're joined tonight by some of SFC SA parents who are sharing their own experiences of engaging with their children's school around EdTech.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stefan Venter. I'm a parent of 3 kids in primary school. Very excited to join this course and to share my experience around the use of technology in our school.
And I'm Cecilia Steinberg. I'm a mom of a teenager and 2 primary school kids. Our kids in the same school as Stefan. My 2 eldest kids were given school mandated devices when they turned 10. They were given by us. Along with Stefan and other parents, we successfully got to the school to reconsider we call it the BYOD, the Bring Your Own Device program last year. And Kate asked me to join the discussion to share a bit about the experience of engaging with the school on their policy on EdTech.
We're looking forward to hearing your stories a little bit later. So let's get on to answering many of the questions that have been submitted. So there's a lot of debate at the moment, not just in South Africa, but globally, around the pros and cons of the use and the integration of EdTech, and particularly in primary schools, but obviously also as we go up into high school. So, Bron, let's start with what is EdTech, and does it genuinely enrich learning, or does it risk replacing foundational skills that children need to learn?
Yes, this is a great question, and it did come up in those questions from the parents. So EdTech is short for educational technology, and it encompasses the broad umbrella term that encompasses digital tools, platforms, devices that are used to support and enhance teaching and learning. They range from classroom tablets and interactive boards to online courses and educational apps. And when used wisely, it can truly enrich learning, and it opens up incredible new ways for students to explore ideas, collaborate, and access resources they couldn't access before, make learning more engaging and tailored to each learner's needs in terms of personalization. But like any tool, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. And while EdTech can help personalize education and connect us globally, it should never replace core building blocks like reading, writing, deep thinking, or real social interaction. When we emphasize balance and use technology to support rather than substitute foundational skills, we protect what matters most in a child's development and ensure technology serves human learning, not the other way around.
Yeah. And so the big question that we get asked a lot around our stance, Smartphone-Free Childhood South Africa, is, are we an anti-tech organization?
Absolutely not. So in South Africa, Smartphone-Free Childhood advocates for slow, intentional integration of technology. It's never a blanket ban. It's about making mindful decisions centered on children's growth and well-being. And we champion tech that enhances learning, not tech that just ticks boxes or solves imaginary problems. And what we recognize is that there's a difference between educational tech managed by schools and personally owned smartphones. And that's important to maintain these boundaries.
So what age, in your view, do you think that EdTech should be introduced?
This was a good question. I think it's a question a lot of people ask. So I went back to the research, right? And the research is clear that introducing technology is not a decision that we make lightly, and it shouldn't be. And the consensus across peer-reviewed studies is that we must always be mindful, intentional, and guided by the children's developmental needs. So personally, I find the 3 C's framework, the content, context, and individual child, is an incredibly helpful way for schools and families to decide what, when, and how technology is best used to support children's learning and well-being. So if we start with the very early years, the evidence is clear. No child under 24 months benefits from any form of screen time, unless there's a diagnosed need, such as for certain disabilities. But for toddlers and preschoolers, EdTech should be rare and specific, and real-world, encourage play and real-world learning experiences. Those should be the foundation of the healthy growth and learning, not the device. And the American Academy of Pediatrics and OECD and the Office of Education Technology all recommend that technology in early childhood settings is minimized, and that there should be a focus on creativity, movement, and face-to-face engagement. If digital devices are used with young children under the age of 2, it should really be about activities that foster connection, like a video call with gran or grandpa, a distant family that live far away. But then again, an adult should be present in the room for that shared interaction. It shouldn't be child alone on the device talking to them. And then as children move into preschool, we're talking grades R to 2, technology should be introduced with high intention and supervision. And the National Association for Education of Young Children advises the following, that technology when used should be rare, intentional, and focused on creative, active uses, and always blended with hands-on play, movement, and social learning. So that social learning would be face-to-face, hands-on, playing with Play-Doh, making things, making mud cakes, whatever it might be. And the experts consistently recommend short, purpose-driven sessions, not using tech as a replacement for direct interaction or as a replacement for peer socialization or hands-on learning. Technology is most effective when adults and peers interact or co-view digital content with children and use it as a tool for relationship building, not distraction, or even more importantly, isolation, right? So we're not talking about babysitting here. That's the worst thing you can do, is stick a child in the corner with a device, whether that's at school or at home. And then grade 3 and above, which is roughly age 8 and onwards, it's about being structured and transparent use of technology. And it can gradually increase from a grade 3 and upwards, especially when the devices are school-owned and the learning goals are very clear. And the key here, though, isn't that tech should enhance, is that the tech has to enhance the learning and collaboration, not disrupt it. So UNESCO Global Education Monitoring Report puts it this way: technology is best used in the classroom only when it clearly supports learning outcomes and should be limited if it disrupts physical, social, or emotional development. So again, it comes down to the school context, what kind of school, what is the children that they're serving in the community, do they have specific needs? And of course, we are also aware of the fact that many Silicon Valley execs send their own children to Montessori schools through the primary years where there's minimal use of EdTech. And so how does that relate to the rest of us? So schools play a crucial role, but like I said, every school's different and that context matters. And so does parental involvement. And it's important that families and educators work together and they stay in close conversation about the rationale and the guidelines for the tech use, and that they tailor practices to the needs of that community. So if you were to put my back against the wall and say, okay, Bronwyn, sum it up, under age 24, no screens, unless it's those situations where you're talking to family and the parents or the caregivers with them. Pre-primary, ages 3 to 5, rare, and very specific, but the play and hands-on learning and the face-to-face must take precedence at all costs. The grades R to 2, it should be supervised, brief, and very purposeful. And from grades 3 and up, a slow, gradual introduction, but again, guided by very, very clear goals. But most importantly, at any age, as we've discussed, technology should never replace hands-on social or motor learning. And it should serve to enrich, support, not replace the vital experiences children need for their growth. I hope that's answered your question. I know it's a roundabout.
Yeah, I'm hearing lots of careful and mindful from you, so that I think that's, we're going to pick it up again. I see we've been joined by Hugo, so I think if he's able to and can tap in with his voice and his face, it would be great if we could just have Hugo come in for a minute and just and join our community. Hugo, if you can hear, I can see that you have joined, and I'm going to be, while we're getting Hugo, there we go.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. Hello, Hugo. Lovely to have you.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Sorry, it's an absolutely manic, I don't even know what day it is. Thursday, Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Anyway, yeah, I've got to travel to London at short notice. So you're probably going to hear more of my voice. You're going to see my picture until I've been able to settle in the lounge. But, you know, when I spoke to Claire, in fact, when I spoke to Kate, in an interview, because I'm a broadcaster, a few weeks ago, I was immediately blown away by the relevance and my own personal challenges as a father. So I have a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, and we're continually battling, my wife and I, with how much time is enough time without depriving the kids, right? And then you think about, okay, so now what we do is during the week there is no telly. Gadgets are limited, obviously, to when they need to do stuff for school. But it then raises a question, and in my conversation with Claire, one of the things I said is, well, if as a parent, I deprive my kids of screen time, then it potentially means I've got to replace that time with some other time. more often than not, it's time that I should be spending with the kids. Now, how many dads out there, I can't speak for the mums, but how many dads out there are sufficiently skilled to be able to then spend X number of hours with their kids, that ordinarily those kids would be spending on gadgets? So it becomes a huge challenge, right? And that if you volunteer to deprive your kids of screen time, of smartphones, then you got to replace the time that they were going to be spending on those smartphones with something else. And potentially that something else is you. Do you have capacity as a father or as a parent to be spending time with your kids? And I think that's a big question for many, many people. An even bigger challenge for men, right? Because in many households, the mums are doing an incredible amount to look after the kids, and the dads are busy at work, and sometimes they're just busy doing other things, not spending enough time at home. So I'm super stoked to be a part of this process, and hopefully we can get more dads on board and get equipped with the necessary skill set to say, you know what, yes, we are pro delaying and reducing the amount of screen time or smartphones that our kids are spending, but we also need help with developing the skill set, right? That allows us to then fill that time when our kids aren't on gadgets. So those are sort of conversations that I'm looking forward to. And thanks again, and apologies for my intermittent connection.
Well, we appreciate that you're trying to do this on the run in the airport, and thank you for this, for being such a good supporter of smartphone-free childhood, and we look forward to seeing you at a future one. And I think your what you're trying to say in terms of competing for your children's attention against devices is so relevant. We've got enough devices in all of our houses, and when devices come home from school and kids are doing homework on those devices, it's more competition, and we have to be obviously very careful around how much added screen time is being put on top of all of that, and competing for family time. So these are all the challenges that we are facing as modern parents. So I've put up another poll there just to get a sense of where parents are at. Where in your current experience, where are you finding tech being introduced? At which level in your children's lives are you getting, are you seeing it happening? Some people are answering, as early as nursery school. For others, maybe their schools don't use EdTech at all, or perhaps they're delaying until grade 6 or grade 7. So maybe if you could just give us a sense of, in your reality, what's happening there. And I'm going to just show everybody what those results are. So yeah, I mean, we've got a small number saying already at nursery school. I think Bron's nodding, and we've had those discussions. Nursery school is typically your 2s and 3s, and I sort of personally have also heard of parents raising this question, that nursery schools feel that they need to be cutting edge and start introducing screen time and iPads and even coding and robotics, and obviously also into pre-primary school, where we're seeing a bit more of an uptake. But it's really once you're getting to primary school that is starting. So from as early as grade 0 to we've got parents saying that it's been integrated. Grade 1, grade 4 is a big uptake. I've found that personally in my own children's journeys. Grade 4 seems to be the real entry level, particularly where schools start asking parents to invest potentially in bring your own device models. Bronwyn's nodding around that. So yeah, I think that's quite interesting. Those stats are very interesting. Very few, interestingly, are saying that their schools are not using EdTech at all. Bron, you mentioned sort of the Montessori type schools, and obviously those Silicon Valley schools where a lot of the big tech moguls are sending their children, and famously are giving them a very much offline childhood for as long as possible. So, I mean, what Hugo's saying, as a parent and as a parent myself, we are concerned about the total screen time that our children are exposed to. We're adding up educational and entertainment, and it all needs to be added up, right? So Bron, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So as you rightly said, Kate, the educational, entertainment or social, it all needs to be considered together when you're looking at your child's overall exposure to technology every day. It's valid to be concerned about your child's total screen time and to wonder whether educational apps, school tech and video calls should be counted alongside the entertainment screen time. So according to the World Health Organization and the OECD guidelines, along with recommendations from the American Academy of Pediatrics, all forms of screen time, not just entertainment, impact children's health and development and should be monitored. And we're thinking of things like damage to the eyes, we're thinking of posture issues, gross motor skills, the lack of physical stamina to sit in a chair when they go to school because they've been on devices for long periods of time, slumped in chairs. So when we look at the hours of screen time, we need to include the TV, the gaming, the educational software, the social media, and the video calling. And when you actually add it up, like the other day, I didn't have my screen, any of my screens near me, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And I thought, gosh, there used to be a time when I'd strike up a conversation with someone at a bus stop or in a waiting room in a doctor's office. So it's that all of these count. And the research shows the effects on well-being and brain development are cumulative. So no matter the device or platform, for young children, especially, the WHO guidelines recommend no more than 1 hour per day of sedentary screen time between ages 2 and 5. And we've already discussed the under 2, not at all. And the less, the better. And for older children, whilst there's strictly no global hour limit, the advice is clear that the screen time must not affect real-time activities, such as unstructured play, reading, important physical movement, and of course, sleep. And it's for this reason that schools and parents need to plan that EdTech use carefully and coordinate so that children don't exceed those healthy limits through the combination of school and home technology time. And when it comes down to it, the OECD stresses that screen-based learning should not replace opportunities for in-person interaction and physical activity. So, when we throw in a device instead of a child doing a sport or an extramural activity that involves real-world non-tech stuff, that's where the problem comes into play. So it's, also watching a movie on TV. There was something I read the other day about how a lot of children and adults now struggle to focus on an entire movie on a television. And they need to have another device in front of them and be playing a game. And I'm guilty as charged. I'm a homescapes person and I'm in a team and I'm expected to achieve a certain level every day. And I recognize that while I'm listening to the television, I'm playing a game. And that's crazy because that's real disruption. And how can I be focused on everything when my mind is split in many different ways? And that's me as an adult, 53 years old, having lived a life without TikTok. And we've heard about the damage of YouTube Shorts and TikTok brain. So it's about discussing what your child is watching or playing and then using EdTech interactively rather than passively, and collaborative screen use that as a family to build relationships and critical thinking, but ones that don't eliminate the need for, it doesn't eliminate the need for total time boundaries. And the reality is that every hour spent on a screen is an hour not spent exploring the outdoors, building with your hands, talking face to face, or simply resting precisely, and being bored. And so we must prioritize those human interactions over early exposure to screens. And we must ask ourselves, what opportunities are children missing in the real world when they're occupied on screens? Yeah. And as Hugo pointed out, dad's getting involved as well. Doing those activities are so important. Building those relationships are important because that's how you establish your own family's approach to living life, right? Being in the world. So by keeping screen time in check and remembering to prioritize slow tech and low tech experiences, we offer kids the healthiest possible path for growth and learning.
Okay, so I think that is a very good summation. I think it's a lot about missed opportunities, whether you're at school or you are at home. If you're online, what are you missing out offline? Right, so we've got lots of questions we need to get through, Bron, so we're going to push a little bit. I think one of the questions was how is genuine learning differentiated from busy work?
That's a good one. So where technology comes in, it's only valuable if it supports deeper learning. So technology should never replace the unique value of a teacher-student relationship or student-to-student relationship. So instead of, when we apply it thoughtfully, it can enhance collaborative and differentiated learning. And I've got some examples. Virtual field trips. It allows students to experience events beyond what's possible in their local environment. So For example, when I was teaching another school, the kids visited the Great Wall of China in Egypt, which would not have been possible unless we'd had a lot of, one who wants to be a millionaire and send everyone on a plane to visit. And we had expert interviews, which connected the classroom directly with scientists, with authors. And we had some students who were studying viruses, and they were able to interview a virologist in the UK. We had students participating in World Read Aloud Day, where they read in 4 of the South African official languages, and the students on the other side read to them in Arabic. So when you have also examples of where adaptive software helps, like in Mauritius, we've got a lot of students from the Ukraine and from Russia who struggle with English as a second language. So they use the translation tools to help communicate with staff. So there are tools that permit students to practice their speeches, and it provides feedback for improvement before they actually present it in the real world in front of the class. So how do we decide?
Choices, right? It's about
precisely
why are we doing it? It's not tech for the sake of tech. I think
Correct.
It leads us into this next question is about safety, privacy, and policies. Because who ensures then, if a decision has been made about to use a tech or a particular platform, who's ensuring that it's used safely at schools and then at home, if it does go home? And how can parents and schools collaborate on this?
So a very important question, and it's fundamental to the duty of care for both schools and families. So when schools adopt technology, they take on a serious responsibility to protect students, not only from the harmful content, but from the risks to privacy and well-being. So schools play that central role in safeguarding those learners through they can do this through robust measures like firewalls, mobile device management systems, and those clear, transparent digital policies. And we found that in my experience, when we've engaged with parent bodies like chief technology officers and the wealth of experience from the parent body to say, come in and have a look at our policies and look at our processes and which applications and platforms we're using, that engages parents and it brings in those expert skills and real world digital experience, the schools benefit from that knowledge. And then when you work together, the schools and families can create clear rules about which apps and platforms are appropriate, how device use is monitored, and where the physical boundaries for technology use are set, such as in classrooms or common spaces, like you might have tech-free breaks. Those comprehensive and transparent policies are essential, and they should govern everything from the choice of apps including conducting due diligence. Even with widely accepted tools like the Bible app, we had an incident where we discovered the free Bible app. How harmful could a free Bible app be? Well, it was advertising some untoward dating sites inside the free version. So it's doing that testing behind and to make sure that you do that rigorous testing. And then, of course, all the AI-based platforms and the privacy controls, making sure teachers or people, and you've got that duty of care, are not uploading social and emotional need information into AI that can then be used later, against a child when they become an adult. So it's only through that clear communication, the shared strategies, and the regular review of policies, because those platforms change. As anyone will know, just using any of the Meta products, those rules and regulations and the terms of the T's and Z's change all the time. So we've got to we have to ensure that learners remain safe and supported in school and beyond. And that's through that transparent communication between schools and parents.
So let's chat a little bit more about using tech at school versus home. And do devices that are used at school have to come home, particularly in primary school? And how can parents know whether the devices then at home are really being used for learning and not for, distraction or entertainment when children are at home in the afternoon?
Great question. So I think it's important to start by asking if the technology is genuinely required for the homework, or if there are screen-free alternatives that could serve just as well. And I think parents are well within their rights, and it should feel empowered to open those conversations with the child's school about those expectations. Because sometimes tech at home is not necessary, and it can be minimized without impacting those learning outcomes. If devices do come home, again, the transparency and alignment between school and home becomes vital. So parents should clearly understand what filters, firewalls, and protections the school has in place, and ask whether any of these safeguards can extend to home use, because many NDMs now can do that. I have a friend whose son was at a school, and when his device went home, it got locked and he couldn't do anything with it. Effectively became a brick.
So educational device only. It can't be used for social media in the afternoon or Netflix.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. And even though the parents had bought the device. I've also worked in schools where the parents had bought the device as well, and the device has stayed at the school during the holidays. So, and there was a couple of parents who were a bit upset about that because it poses, also for the school, it poses insurance and increases risk for theft or damage. And interestingly, some parents were so unhappy that they'd purchased 2 devices. So one stayed at home and they could do anything with it, and the other one stayed locked up at school. So again, it's about having those conversations are so critical. But at the end of the day, the school and the parent just want what's best for the students. That's where you should be coming from. So physical boundaries are just as crucial as the digital ones too. So think about shared spaces, having your children use the device in a place where you can see them using it, not behind closed doors, bathrooms or bedrooms. And ultimately, it's about fostering that open dialogue and shared responsibility and instilling routines that prioritize learning over entertainment.
Yeah, I think
And asking
the pain
questions.
point, I think the pain point though for parents who are trying to delay smartphones, and let's face it, a tablet and even a laptop is just a bigger version of a smartphone. So for parents who are trying to delay smartphones until high school and then are required to invest or to accept or to manage a device in the name of EdTech, a lot of parents are feeling that they've got no choice but to push back either through exploring an opt-out option. I know that that's becoming very popular in the US at the moment, a lot of legislative overtures exploring that as an option. But you're promoting a different path, you're promoting collaboration. So what successful strategies could help parents and educators work together if we are trying to use these words: careful, mindful, balanced and safeguarded use of EdTech?
So I think the successful strategies start with the vision-led mindful choices regarding the devices and the platforms. And for example, many schools manage school-owned device banks with strong firewalls and clear budget security policies. And this approach addresses equity and safety, and it ensures all students have access to devices strictly for educational purposes. The bring your own device programs also work well, but only under strict managed controls. I mean, it's difficult. It's unrealistic to expect parents to manage something they're not familiar with. And I think it's only fair in the issue of transparency and putting children's needs first to have those conversations. And if a parent feels more comfortable with a device staying at the school, then I think that conversation should be had with the school and say, what options do I have if I want this to stay at school? I don't want it to come home with us. I don't want it to go on holiday with us. But it requires that reliable mobile device management system that schools know how to use and teachers have had adequate training on, and using it, recognizing that it's an educational tool without the non-educational apps. And then, can it be maintained 24/7? Is it required to stay at school? Does it go home? I think a more common and challenging approach with BYOD is with shared parent-school supervision at home, where parents monitor and guide device use. And this requires clear communication and education, bringing in parents and saying, this is how it's done. This is what it looks like. I know I used to address parents, we would tell them and say, this is what homework looks like on the device. So when your child comes home and says, I'm doing my homework, you should see A, B, and C. And this is what it looks like when it's shut down, and this is what its purpose is. So I think the key to continued success is regular review of those EdTech policies, ongoing teacher professional development, a clear, transparent explanations of why and how the educational technologies are chosen, and then empowering teachers and parents alike to strike a balance between technology use and student well-being. All of these will help develop a healthy school culture around EdTech, which can be done. It shouldn't be an us versus them situation, because in the past, parents never asked questions about what the curriculum was, what was being covered. And I recognize, Kate, that we've had many discussions around this, that for a family who said no to smartphones and then the child now has to have the device, it does put parents in a very difficult position. And that's why it's critical that those conversations be had with the schools and say, help me understand, what does teaching and learning look like on this? And are there options for me? Because I don't want it to come home.
You talk about options. So, I mean, there are always options. I mean, in my mind, there's 3 main choices that a school, whether it's an SGB or a board, is making. Firstly, to consider school-owned and school-managed devices, so like a computer center or a bank of iPads or tablets, so that is integrated into in classes where it's required, maybe coding, maybe robotics, or maybe there's other classes where it supplements the education. But the technology is very much managed by the school, and it's kept at the school, right? Of course, there would be, there's budget considerations around that, and there's security considerations. The second one that I've seen is the bring your own device, where parents are required to buy the device that then goes to school to be used. And I think there we can consider, like you've mentioned, does the school's mobile device management system, can that be applied 24/7? So can we treat those devices as educational only? So if they do go home, they are still locked down only to be used with the school approved apps, and can't be used, for surfing the internet and for downloading social media, or even downloading VPNs, which, the next day can then get around the school firewall. And I think the third option, which seems to be the most common, and this is where the pain point seems to be for parents, is they're being asked to bring your own device, to buy your own device. The school is managing it during school hours with their firewalls and their mobile device management system, but that doesn't extend to after hours. So after hours, you've got this device which is then left to parents to manage, and they have to try and install the controls or use the Wi-Fi router or different apps to try and manage it. And I think that is where the primary pain point is. And I just wanted to get your sense on are those the three options that we're looking at? Is that really the scenarios that we can be in our engagements with schools asking them to consider?
Yeah, yes, I would agree with that. And I think obviously first prize is the school-owned, school-managed device that doesn't go home, or if it does, is monitored and managed. I do think that by the school, yes. In my experience, the issues have always come to the fore when it's just been a device that kids then start messaging on. And don't be fooled by, I'm working on some collaborative document. Wherever, communication can take place, kids can share things that they're not supposed to share. So I think it's got to be very carefully unpacked and discussed between parents and the school. But I do believe that it's possible to find a path through this, to be able to work together, to find something that works for the good of the students in the end. It's about, but again, it comes back to keeping that open communication with the schools to ensure that it's introduced thoughtfully and not out of necessity or convenience or competition with the school next door.
Let's talk a little bit about collaboration. I'm going to ask Stefan and Cecilia to join us on screen now. So, I mean, my experience as a mum, going back about 5 years ago, I think my daughter was in about grade 3 when COVID hit. And so the school sent iPads back with them so that they could continue learning. And we were all very grateful because, of course, lessons could continue. But we quickly started seeing the problems with having children that young on these iPads, which were really not properly protected and managed. And they were, it was a girls' school, but there were girls getting into a lot of deep water, getting onto dating sites, downloading Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok at a very young age, talking with strangers, because these young brains don't know any better. And they, the prefrontal cortex is not yet developed. The impulse control is not there. So this is what was happening. So I had a very solo approach, in trying to raise these discussions with my daughter's school and trying to get them to understand the pain point we had as parents with these devices coming home and the school's mobile device management not being extended 24/7, so that we could lock them down just as educational devices. And within our parent group, we had the outliers. We had the parents who saying, well, it's our device, we've paid for it, we want our children to be, get full use of it. And then there were others like me that were saying, these are potentially portals to great harm, and great harm is happening. And it might not be my child that's being exposed, but she's sitting next door to another child that's being exposed, and all of that is being shared every day at school. So I'm being joined now by Stefan and Cecilia because I'm very grateful that they're going to come and share their story. They had a bigger group of parents. And Cecilia, I'd like to start with you because you sparked the conversation, your school, and then you were joined by a fabulous group, including some men, which I think you resonated, also found helpful. Can you tell us how you started in your school the conversation around this?
Yes, so I've got a teenager and then the two younger kids, one's grade 6 and a grade 4, and our school introduces tablets from grade 5. So it's normally the December holiday, Christmas, one of our kids get a device for Christmas for the next year. And I did it for my eldest and my middle child. And then you hear the grumbling amongst parents, like everybody complains about it, but nobody really does anything. And especially with my middle child, he's a boy, that I just seen like the effect it had on him and just how he just, it's like a rabbit hole. He just fell down in terms of gaming. He just joined this ecosystem of boys the same age in gaming and everything. And I know it's also on the parents, but it wasn't something that I would have introduced at that age, to him if it wasn't mandated by the school. So there was that irritation. And, as you said, that we wouldn't have done it out of our own, volition. So that was that. And then also the policy had been implemented since 2016. So we're almost nearing next year, it'll be 10 years. So next year is also the year that the bring your own tablet is now phasing out, because we had that was the whole year-long process last year, and then end of last year, the school made the decision to keep to have more mindful approach to the use of technology. There's now a lab with dedicated devices or screens or whatever they are. It's more STEM focused. It focuses on purpose, like on robotics, those kind of things. And so I don't know, you want to play by play, like exactly how
did you
fed up I
start
was
the
and what I did?
conversation? How did you start it? I mean, it
Yeah,
takes brave souls to start
yeah. So
conversations. You don't really know if other parents feel the same as you. You're kind of,
yeah, there was a little bit of luck involved as well, because there was a changing of the guard. We had a changeover of principals as well, beginning of last year. And I think the principal was still kind of either making up his mind or sympathetic to our cause, to a slower approach or a more mindful approach. So I think that helped. But
but you as a mum,
but
how did you start this conversation?
so first I just made a little poster. It was because they had a meeting at the school saying that we're going to discuss the approach, the tablets, and then it wasn't a meeting, it was more like an information session. So that just made me incredibly angry. I felt like not being heard, not giving a chance to ask any questions or to speak. And I think from that frustration, that's really where it started. So the next day I just made a little, it's almost like a poster you can make that fits on a WhatsApp screen, on a phone screen. And I just said, are you also fed up? Or do you want to? But it wasn't like, are you also fed up? It was more like, do you want to join me with engaging, be part of a group of parents who want to engage with the school? And I just think it was probably very topical, or having had the policy in place for so long, that there were many parents who had something to say. And they were also through the year, there were also parents who got involved who were actually positive about the tablets, but most of the parents weren't. And I just think it was like a little bit of an avalanche, that suddenly it was in the public domain, where a lot of parents previously would go have a one-on-one conversation with either the teacher responsible for the IT or the principal. And I think that just in the end it adds up to maybe, you don't know what happens behind closed doors, and it's just not in a public domain. But once something is already out there in the open, then it's really hard to scramble or to hide it or to just suppress that conversation. So I think that was really just to say something, and this is me, this is my name, this is my number, this is what I believe. And I feel like maybe, are there more people like me? And that's really where it started.
Okay. So Stefan, you got involved.
I think Cecilia is being humble here. She not just started the conversation, she wrote a beautiful letter to the school, which really actually sparked accountability around the parent group. And I don't think in any school, education should only be the focus of the teachers. The accountability starts with parents at home. And we're lucky enough in our community that parents are very much involved. But I think that accountability that was suddenly challenged around how do we go about using technology in a school sparked maybe an interest in quite a broad group, and luckily there's a lot of professionals in the group that also were willing to give their time. So I mean, I'm a very passionate outdoors dad. I like to take my kids on adventures every holiday and as many weekends as I can. And I've got a bit of a pet hate with TV in the first place, but also other smart technologies, because they just steal time from reality. So I got involved by that interest in my raising kids in the outdoors. And I think the important message that I'd like to leave with other parents that are listening is that if you take accountability, I think we're lucky with the education system in South Africa where people are interested in raising kids that are able to be successful in the future. So we're not anti-tech, but we very much focus on raising kids that are responsible about using technology.
Yeah, but your group still used a very science research-based approach, first of all, didn't you? You gathered your thoughts around that. Can you take us a little bit about how you approached the school, how you got into conversation on the basis of that?
I think that was a tough part, and Cecilia, please weigh in here. But the school was at first passing the ball back to us and saying we need to prove why the current policy around technology is, according to our open letter or our challenge to the school, is not working. But as I said earlier, the number of professionals in the parent group were able to suffice the research process with, and I mean, there's a lot of resources available globally. I think Jonathan Haidt has started a real, almost a rebellion against the introduction of technology at too early a stage, and we leaned onto that like open resource, and we had all the professionals carry their weight. We had a psychiatrist that was involved. He had a lot of comments and research around the use of social media, which is not necessarily what the school intends technology to be used, but entertainment is what most people and most kids use their technology for. So that's the result of it. So plus there was a lot of educational people that are working in the system at the school in terms of school psychologists and other people that are working in technology and know how to use technology to actually make money, that were actually also willing to influence the school policy around what should be the use of technology in terms of creative education and not just entertainment basis.
So what was the outcome? Where did you get to in your back and forth discussions?
Cecilia, do you want to get that one?
Well, I think I kind of touched on it, but it is like that we're phasing out the bring your own device and having a dedicated room and like a STEM room and a dedicated program with robotics and like something that's actually truly and teaching kids about the use of technology and not just consuming, because I think with the tablet and the way the school applied it was really just consuming the same information that you would have in your textbook just through a screen. So it was basically what we call it a textbook, a really expensive textbook made out of glass. So it really depends on how the schools use it, but we just felt in the end, like, yes, the research is very important. I do feel that actually still when the school wants to introduce a really far-reaching policy like this, the school should actually come with research in favor of bringing in EdTech and not putting the onus on parents to have to defend against not using EdTech. And a lot of that information is not out there yet. Like it's all recent, really new. We don't really know what are we going to regret exposing like this cohort of students like this last 10 years, and also I can't really see any benefit to it as well, just in the way that it has been used in the school. Like we cannot see that the last 10 years of kids are exceptionally adept at technology or anything like that. So it's really, Stefan focused on the research, but I feel like I wanted to center on the stories of the families and of the parents and having their voices heard.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I have to sum up what I've heard from all of you tonight, I think we're in this realm where we're all learning, but I think as parents, we need to get into the space where we need to feel brave enough and find support in others to have these conversations with schools. I think from an educator perspective, and I know we've got educators online tonight, I think we're not trying to set up a them versus us scenario. I think it's trying to come together. So educators are trying their very hardest to give the best possible education to our children and to tap into all the amazing benefits that technology can bring to supplement what is being taught. From our side, we are just trying to say, are these decisions being made in the best interest of the children? So are we making the most mindful decisions, whether it's about the model of the tech being used, whether it's staying at home, whether it's coming home, it's about the safeguarding, it's about due diligence around the actual platforms that are being chosen, and are we continually reassessing whether those are working? Are we inadvertently giving away data of minors? There's a lot of discussion that has to go into that, and so that really, I think, is what we are trying to encourage. We are going to send out an email with the replay of this webinar, but also with a conversation guide that we've developed that we've been helping a few parents with along the way in the last couple of months. That really is to help them go into these conversations with schools and in a way that we're not setting it up for confrontation. I think that's the most important thing, is that we are keeping the interests of our children foremost in everything what we do, whether we're an educator or a parent. And so I hope that there's been more enough insight shared tonight that people are going to be being able to mull over some of these, that we're going to feel that we can step into this space, we can be brave. I think if you're sitting in a school community, reach out, talk to other parents, talk to the teachers. I think you're not going to know until you start, like Cecilia did, the little spark of the conversation that snowballed into a group that we're keen to help and to support her, but also support and help the school too. So thank you, everybody, for being with us tonight. Claire, I know that your camera's not working. I wondered if you wanted to just pop in and say a few words, because we would like to bring Adrian, our wonderful and passionate supporter and sponsor, on screen as well, just to say a few words before we go.
Yes, thank you, Kate. So because SFC is a fledgling not-for-profit, we are obviously entirely volunteer-run and self-funded. So we would just like to give our official sincere thanks to our sponsor, Fynbos Money. Adrian Hope Bailey is the CEO of Fynbos Money. He is a father, and he is also a member of our SFC community, obviously signing the Parent Pact. So I'd like to just give Adrian the floor. Would you like to say a few words?
I don't have a lot to add. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much. And yeah, I guess from our side, just always we're very keen to continue supporting this. I think as a parent, it's very easy to know this doesn't feel right when your 7-year-old is on a tablet for hours on end. And I think having an organization that's equipping parents just with the knowledge and the facts that they can use to defend their position is incredibly powerful. So yeah, keep on doing what you're doing. We're very happy to be supporting it.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you for your ongoing support. And to Hugo in his absence, who we hope to see in full person, and apologies that his video wasn't showing earlier. I got lots of messages from attendees coming in to say they couldn't see Hugo, but neither could I. We could only hear Hugo, but we hope to see Hugo next time, because we'd love to have him in this space. But to Bronwyn and Stefan and Cecilia, thank you for sharing your expertise and your passion with us today in such a wonderful way. And thank you again to our audience for joining us. I hope this has empowered you. I hope it's made you feel more confident. So what can you do next? Look out for your email, for your conversation guide. Start those delay conversations in your school communities, in your social communities. Initiate a Delay the Device campaign in your primary schools. Sign the Parent Pact. And of course, we've got a phone-free school surveys that we're running as well, which is going to be supporting the advocacy work we're doing as we continue working quite closely with our regulators. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. If there are any questions that were not answered, we tried our best. Please send those through to info@sfc-sa.co.za, and we will respond to you there. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful night. Please go and hug your kids if they're not already in bed, and enjoy your evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Everyone.